And we want to highlight the people that are doing the work that is actually going to make the long-term impact and changes that we need to make. And there is nobody, and I mean nobody, especially on the domestic side. We've got some really solid people like Aaron Mate, who's on more of the international side. But as far as domestic investigative journalism goes, there is nobody better than Jordan Chariton of Status Quo. And he's here. Jordan, welcome to Generational Change once again, my friend.
Apparently I'm underdressed.
Are you?
Wow. Are you kidding me? I'm wearing a tank top and sitting in a trailer on a hemp farm.
This one rule where I actually attempt to look professional.
He tries on Thursdays.
To some degree on a, once a week. But on Casual Monday, that's when we wear like a regular, Generational Change t-shirt. So we're not really going, we're not trying to be too fancy, but hey, I'm trying to class this place up a little bit.
He's not doing it because it's still my name in the thing and I'm still not wearing sleeves. So I don't know where you're going with that, but whatever.
All right. So let's start from the top. You have been on the road for how long? Is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I know you were out there for quite a while.
Little over 2 weeks. We just got back.
And so you started in Pennsylvania, went through West Virginia, and then went to Kentucky. Was there any other stops that you made along the way?
Yeah. So we started in Philadelphia. We were there for a couple of days. Then we went to Akron, Ohio, which is near Cleveland. Then we went to Cleveland. Then we went to Louisville. I was there for 4 days, I think. And we finished in West Virginia for a couple of days.
And what was the nature of this trip? Like, obviously you recognize what's going on around the country, but what was the impetus to go to those particular places when you went? Like, what was the draw? Yeah.
So, as a bootstrapped indie outlet that it doesn't take any corporate money, you kind of have to be geographical. So we don't have the money to, fly to multiple states and rent cars everywhere. So it just kind of made sense driving wise, although it's a long drive through these states. They were close enough to each other that we could hit all those states. Myself and Jen, co-founder of Status Quo, and my partner, we were having a conversation one day and I said, you know what, honestly, like, isn't America a pandemic in itself? Isn't just this country beyond COVID a pandemic? So we kind of called it the other pandemic. That's what we called the trip, America. And I wanted to really focus a lot on the alternate reality where, the media is pushing that things are getting back to normal. The economy is roaring back. Jobs are coming back. Meanwhile, homelessness is exploding, even worse than it already has been. There's an eviction apocalypse, which we learned has already came. We learned on the trip that people have been evicted throughout the pandemic, which we can get into. I also, part of what we do is basically keep going back to places where the cameras have long gone. So I wanted to continue covering what I think is beyond, but other than Flint, the biggest cover up in America, which is the Breonna Taylor's murder and the cover up after the fact. And then, I think there's a lot of attention on Joe Manchin in the media, but not actual reporting and investigation into Joe Manchin. So I wanted to go to West Virginia. As I know, from doing this for many years, you kind of find out where the bodies are buried, not from talking to pundits, but from talking to actual residents and activists. And so we wanted to go to West Virginia, where I learned a whole lot about Joe Manchin, a lot that we haven't even reported. So those are the kind of core things going into it we wanted to report on. But with all these trips, you go in with an objective to cover certain things, but things pop up along the way that you didn't expect. So that kind of happened too. But I will tell you, it's eerily similar to 2008, 2009, when, 2011, 2012, with the job numbers artificially going down, the media, the Democratic Party at the time were pushing, things are, getting better. Meanwhile, millions were being foreclosed on. People who used to have full-time jobs were now driving Uber and Lyft on top of a shitty job. So there was an alternative reality then. I actually think it's much, much wider in terms of the cognitive dissonance and the complete distortions and lies that the media are painting from what we saw on the ground.
Yeah.
I think, the best place to start, as we, were talking briefly before, is the housing crisis. I don't think it's getting anywhere. I mean, again, it's getting some attention, but it's not getting wall-to-wall coverage attention the way that it needs to. And when
I just want to cut you off. This is not a housing crisis. This is economic terrorism. What's going on?
Oh yeah,
and
oh,
I think sometimes because of terms like gentrification, which a lot of people don't even know what that means, or the housing crisis, what's going on right now is literally, to me, economic terrorism. Sorry to cut you off.
Not at all. I mean, again, this is a topic, for those who don't know, Jordan and I are actually personal friends. This is an issue that is very near and dear to him, and it is not getting the type of attention that it really needs to be getting, because this is what is going to cause literally the ground to break in this country, is when people are no longer able to put a roof over their head. And we have a crisis with that as it stands right now, but it's going to become an avalanche. There are tens of millions of people who are at a point where they're not going to be able to remain in a house or in an apartment. They're going to be kicked out. And I think that also is where organizations like BlackRock plays a role. But what did you learn in terms of the housing crisis, just going through Philadelphia, going through, I think if you were in Morgantown, I know you were in Louisville. I'm curious as to what has been the overall consensus in terms of the people that you've spoken to that are potentially facing eviction.
Yeah, I just want to highlight also, sometimes it's me who gets credit, but Jen, my partner, was with me. Yeah. John, our cameraman, so it wasn't just me. But, first let's start with, the federal government and the media, pushed the headlines. The CARES Act originally, then Biden, his COVID bill. But if you actually look deeper into those headlines, first off, there was tens of billions of dollars that were supposed to go towards rental relief during the pandemic. And that money was going to landlords who we think were supposed to be using it as payment for their tenants during a pandemic that killed over 600,000 people. What actually happened, we learned, was a significant portion of landlords and slumlords all across this country were essentially double dipping, taking the rent money, taking the rental assistance money from the federal government and evicting their tenants. And they were using the rental relief money to do improvements on the property, redevelop the property, or flip the property. So we met a lot of people, and we haven't even published all the interviews, who were illegally evicted. There was major loopholes in the eviction moratorium. It really only protected people who couldn't pay, but landlords, because of the loopholes, started evicting people for nuisance violations, started evicting people, your lawn's not mowed, or you're not keeping the property upright, evicted people because they're not on contract when the lease was up, but the landlord wouldn't let them re-sign the lease. So essentially what this pandemic was, and Naomi Klein talks about this in Shock Doctrine, and essentially was a opportunity, what does Rahm Emanuel say? Never let an opportunity go to waste. Yep. Was an opportunity for real estate developers who, by the way, are in collusion with local and city governments. We actually learned in Philadelphia, there's real estate developers who are city council members and still are real estate developers.
No conflict of interest there.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, that are literally, basically the landlords have stolen the money from the federal government with no accountability, just like, the bailout in 2009 to the banks. No strings, no accountability, nothing, no eyes. Same thing here. They stole the money, evicted in a lot of cases. I mean, we haven't gone all across the country. Really poor, Black people, brown people, white people. Jen actually went into a home in Louisville that literally had shit piping into it, sewage from other homes piping into it, all sorts of code violations, holes in the wall. This was an autistic trans man that lived there, and he was being evicted despite all of this. So what we learned on one end was the money has been stolen. Hundreds of billions of dollars, state to state, was given to landlords who essentially, not all, but a very large amount, pocketed it and then tossed people to the streets. One woman in Louisville we interviewed, really nice woman. She worked for the U.S. Census Bureau, was laid off because of the pandemic, eligible for unemployment, didn't get it. Her lease was up in December 2020. Her landlord wouldn't let her re-sign it. She ends up being evicted in March. The only reason she didn't actually be homeless is because Black Lives Matter Louisville got an Airbnb for people like her. There were more than her in that Airbnb. She would have been actually homeless without the support of Black Lives Matter. She just found a place 4 months after being evicted. We interviewed a construction worker in a park in Philadelphia. I've seen a lot of homelessness in San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Vancouver. I had never seen anything like this park in Philadelphia. It's called McPherson Square in Kensington, which is a really rundown, poor area. Mm-hmm. Just a sea of homeless people. We interviewed a construction worker laid off during the pandemic, sleeping in a park for over a year under a train. Basically said, if the city got money from the federal government, we didn't see any of it here. Fortunately, sometimes good things happen when you actually leave your studio. Our interview with him got a lot of praise and attention, and people, one viewer reached out to us and now is setting him up with a job. So something came from that. But between the landlords pocketing the money and evicting people, between the loopholes in this eviction law, I think even I was wrongly under the assumption that the apocalypse was coming when the moratorium's up. No. The apocalypse was already there. We just didn't know it.
Right. Also, I want to ask you something that I've been noticing is that we're talking about people that just don't have homes. There is this whole slew of people that are living in tents and renting out their homes or Airbnb-ing their homes or whatever they're doing. So because they can't even afford to live in the homes that they do have. And I think that is something that is not being calculated when we're talking about like homeless population. I cannot tell you the amount of people I've met on Airbnb that are crashing at someone's house or living in a tent because they can't afford and they need to be able to rent their own property. I mean, this is out of control.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, in Philly, Louisville, Cleveland, and West Virginia, we saw tent cities. So it's happening everywhere. And there are people, I remember in Portland, this was pre-pandemic, I covered a tent city. When I got there for interviews, it was empty because people were working.
Yeah.
So these are like working poor people. I'm literally trying to set up interviews now with people that work at Amazon full time that are sleeping in their cars in the parking lot. So this is beyond, it's beyond really a crisis. It is really the legalized auction of a country to BlackRock, real estate developers, Koch brothers, Democratic Party donors, Republican Party donors, nonprofits that are in on it. And as far as I know, it's not really getting any attention. And it's not that like Status Quo or I are so special. You don't have to go far if you go out and just talk to people or go to different cities. Not everyone, can do that, but you don't have to go far. It's just smacking you in the face.
Yeah. I actually drive around with a cooler in my car that I keep, non-perishables in, and I actually give out brown bags of food. One time I actually gave a bag of weed because I didn't have anything else, but he seemed very appreciative. But the fact is, I am prepared at any given moment that I'm going to see people that don't have food, that don't have access to food. And in Miami, what they've been doing, in addition to obviously trying to criminalize homelessness, is they actually bulldoze their little tent encampments. They go with the police, they go with the garbage trucks, and they just take all their stuff and just shove it in the garbage, and they just have to start all over again. This is something that's been happening pretty routinely in Dade County. I don't know how these places are standing, like in Philadelphia. How are they not getting washed away? Like, how are the municipalities even allowing this to exist?
The municipalities are one and the same with the real estate developers. That's why.
Right. But I mean, they don't want the homeless encampments. That's the thing. It's like, they don't want that there. They're creating it, but they don't want it there. So, I mean, like every time there's an encampment where we are, it eventually gets bulldozed.
Yeah, no, that's what they're doing. We covered one day in Kensington, which is a really poor part of Philadelphia that is being attempts to be gentrified. We covered, police were expected to do sweeps, which is kicking homeless people out of their corners or parks, evicting them. In many cases, the police seize their tents, their property. And there were protesters there against what the police were doing. But there were also protesters on the other side of the street who want the homeless gone. And those were the residents. And, you know, at first I was like, this is disgusting. Who could be out here attacking the homeless? But the more you talk to the residents, you understand they're also like one paycheck away or not getting a paycheck from being homeless. And there is, you know, a sea of needles in that neighborhood. There's poop all over the ground on their, they can't take their kids to parks, this and that. So it's not as black and white where like, you can understand why they're upset. But I was trying to get, when I interviewed some of the residents who wanted the homeless people out here, aren't you kind of focused on blaming the wrong group here? Why aren't you at City Hall? Because City Hall has more than enough money to beautify downtown Philadelphia. This isn't just Philly. I mean, this is every city. 10 blocks are beautified, you know, millions of dollars. I mean, all Rahm Emanuel did was push poor people out of Chicago, push black people out of Chicago, and make a beautiful river walk. That's basically all he did, other than cover up the murder of a 16-year-old. But I actually got some people to change their mind by saying, you know, why aren't you down at City Hall? Because City Hall and the government, by the way, who got hundreds of millions from the federal government, can easily build affordable housing, this and that. They don't want to. And the reason is, number one, I'm learning more and more. There's a lot of real estate developers either also are politicians that still have financial interest in real estate, or are basically just, there's a swinging revolving door in Louisville, I'm learning right now, that literally one of the worst slumlords in the country, their CFO left and is now working for the Louisville Metro government running evictions. So it's just this cesspool of corruption where, yeah, you would think it's in the government, federal, city, state, to, get the homeless off the street, give them housing. But really, most of these cities, what their real goal is to just widen as much as they can that 10-block radius that they've gentrified, and gentrify the whole city with high-rise condos, Whole Foods. I mean, Jesus, at the end of my honeymoon, we were in San Francisco. If you've ever been to Haight Street, which is one of the last bastions of the 60s, there's a friggin' Whole Foods on the corner. Yeah. I mean, it's so jarring. So, you know, what we saw was really these cities are essentially trying to disappear poor people, homeless people. And let's be clear, a lot of these people that are homeless, I guess I never realized this, but part of why I like going in the field is you learn stuff for yourself too, that you could then report. A lot of these homeless people, even if they had the opportunity to leave, a lot of them won't leave where they are because this is their family and they don't want to leave. They're like in this park I was in, they literally, they're each other's survival. They look out for each other, their family, because they're all each other has. So one person I talked to said, if I had an opportunity, I wouldn't go unless they get help too. So that's part of it. But overall, to say it simply, this is a housing crisis, but it's also a corruption crisis, because this is intentional. It's 100%
right. It isn't
intentional.
that there aren't enough houses. It would be a housing crisis if we didn't have enough houses. We have more than enough houses. There are so many empty houses. We keep building condos. We keep building stuff that nobody is going to be able to afford to live in. And then in here, they're also going to fall off into the ocean as well. So, but they keep building them. They just keep. And then there's homeless people. So it isn't, you're right. It's not a housing crisis. It's a morality crisis is what it is. I mean,
and by the way, you know, we heard a lot in the Democratic primary. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? Nobody's talking about, you know, bombing Syria. How much does that cost? Nobody's talking about, you know, the tax breaks for Trump's donors and Democratic Party donors. Nobody's talking about, oh, yeah, we're getting out of Afghanistan, but we're technically still in Iraq and many other countries. All like actually getting the homeless off the street into affordable housing. And it's not just that. You need mental health services. You need drug rehabilitation services. If they did that, you'd actually help the economy on top of it's the right thing to do in helping your fellow man and woman. Because if you could actually support these people to becoming productive members of society, not that they're not humans, but get them into jobs. It only helps the economy and helps them. But this is a drop in the bucket compared to the bullshit money we spend everywhere else. Yeah. And it's just infuriating because honestly, one person comes to mind. I was interviewing a homeless man. I mean, this guy was an entrepreneur. A lot of people, just stereotypes have this image of just like dirty, grimy drug addicts. But most of the homeless people I meet and speak with are smarter than any pundit I've ever seen on CNN.
Yeah, not okay. Low bar. But I would just, I think, and I've met a lot of homeless people. There's always going to be an element of society that wants to sort of live on the fringe. There's always going to be, I call those people like, your hobos. And there are those people. But what we're seeing is mass amounts of average people living on the streets. That's not normal. It's not something that's okay. And these are working people. These are people that work. I think it's like half of the homeless people actually work. I mean, you did something, I remember in Seattle where you were talking to people and it was like a huge percentage of them were full-time workers. And so this is not a lazy problem. I mean, this is a significant, you're right. It's just all filth.
Well, I also think real quick, at the end of the day, I mean, it's just the old record spinning over and over again. So this is the same thing that happened in 08, 09, only to me, worse. Yeah. I mean, it's literally the oligarchs blowing up the country and the economy. In this case, to me, Trump caused this. I've never had Trump derangement syndrome, but honestly, right. if an intelligent soul was in office at the time or a non-corrupt soul at the time, you simply would have shut down the country for 2 months, not each state doing its own thing. Executive order, whatever, you do what Europe did. You pay, the government backstops the payrolls. You keep everybody apart from each other, aside from essential services. And that's that. And you would have had, it wouldn't have evaporated COVID, but it would have made a significant difference. No, but nothing was shut down. Even New York City that was shut down, people were in Central Park, people were taking subways. So they created this pandemic. Also Trump, I mean, it's kind of like on a bigger scale, what happened in Flint, he knew about COVID in January or February. He did nothing. He covered it up. So the government creates the issue. Part of why Trump didn't take aggressive action in the beginning is because the donors didn't want him to shut down the economy. And we know what happened. And now all the vultures, which are the banks, BlackRock, the remaining Koch brother who's buying up all these homes, nonprofits, I'm learning more and more, real estate developers, all these people behind public-private partnerships, which is just a code word for gentrification, they're pouncing like the hyenas in Lion King.
Yeah.
Speaking with Jordan Chariton of Status Quo, I think, again, I was going to leave it to the end to talk about, the corporate media and the impact that they have on this particular issue. But one of the topics we did cover in News and Amuse at the beginning of the show was the article in Vox that came out basically telling people, you had the one article we didn't even address, the one article saying that you should be content to be a renter for the rest of your life. But then there's the other one that says this is not Wall Street's fault. Like they're not to blame for this crisis. And I'm thinking,
who said this? Vox?
Vox.
Yeah. And again, this speaks to the greater issue of just how detrimental the fourth estate is to our society, because they're just mouthpieces for the people in charge. They will pay as they must to continue this charade of thinking, yeah, things are really bad, but it isn't what you think it is, even though that's exactly what you think it is. And I am curious, because I know you talk to a lot of people at the heads of corporate media outlets. Is anyone even attempting to make a push to try to cover this in any capacity without naming any names?
No.
I mean, I've been watching you for it seems years now, exposing really, really horrible, corrupt, filthy things. And the media doesn't really care. They're not interested. And I just think that we need to just accept it for what it is. They're all now no different than, like, let's say Entertainment Tonight or whatever that is. They're not news. They're not interested in news. They're not interested in investigating. They're just not interested.
It's actually worse than you think. It's not only that they're not interested. In some cases, we've had media outlets like stop our stories from coming out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm not surprised because they're not. Why do we even call them media? They're not. They're just propaganda stenographers. It's a very big difference.
Well, as you always like to, if there are certain people you like to lace into in corporate media, and Wolf Blitzer definitely catches a lot of your ire because he's
but Wolf's down in Florida doing the work. So
of course he is, and I think that. But you know, ironically, he really had the most important moment I've ever seen when it came
Pelosi.
With Pelosi. I think that moment when and the only reason he brought it up, I truly believe this, because as you know, Jen and I were in DC not too long ago to be on Tim Pool's show. And the one thing that I took away from just walking in the city was how many homeless encampments were everywhere. And they literally were everywhere. And I'm thinking that Blitzer, who lives in DC, probably just couldn't avoid seeing it every day and thinking, man, this really is a problem. Maybe I should talk about it with the person who could actually affect change, who could actually do something about it.
Maybe I should investigate this further.
Yeah. And her response is, do you know who you're talking to? We're going to get this guy off the air. Can I get somebody else to interview me who isn't going to ask me to actually govern properly? It's so incredible. But I think that interview, for anybody who's never seen it, and to Blitzer's credit, and you can rarely give it, he actually pushed back on her a little bit. He did. He tried to basically tell her, no, Congresswoman, you're actually wrong about this. This is a crisis. I'm not going to say it the way Jordan Chariton of Status Quo is going to say it and basically blow up your spot. But I'm trying to get you to recognize that there is a crisis coming in this country. And if we don't deal with this, it is going to be of epidemic proportions that you can't even begin to recognize. And as Jen likes to say, you will not be able to build your moats wide enough. And I think that's a good segue to Joe Manchin and the things that you've been discovering in West Virginia, because it seems to me that most people know
Joe Manchin.
I think most people know just how corrupt he is, particularly his daughter, Heather Bresch, who is the EpiPen CEO of the EpiPen organization, and the price gouging that is involved, and the special sweetheart deals that she gets from Capitol Hill. I mean, again, it's so transparent, the nepotism that's there, but his corruption, as it is, with a lot of other representatives, runs very deep. But I don't think people really understand. Like I tell people at the national level, people understand how corrupt Debbie Wasserman Schultz is. You don't know what she's involved with here in Broward County. Could you explain to people just how bad things are with Joe Manchin in West Virginia, to the people who really don't know just how deep his corruption goes?
Yeah, so I think it's important, and you know this, Peter, and you know this, Jen. Obviously the sexy topic is national politics, the DNC, but really where you get screwed the strongest is on the local level. And for how corrupt the DNC is, pretty much every state party is equally corrupt, just in different ways. Same thing with local environmental departments, that every state has their own little EPA. So first off, West Virginia is one of the poorest states of the country. I did not know this until being there, but West Virginia, up until the most recent decade, used to be a blue state.
Labor, because they're miners.
Oh, absolutely. That's a Rust Belt state.
Yeah.
That's a Rust Belt state.
Used to be a blue state. So what I learned was, first of all, Joe Manchin, just look at Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida. Joe Manchin runs the state party, and he basically runs West Virginia. The state party officials don't go to the bathroom without his permission. So we learned that, number one, Manchin has been sabotaging progressive candidates in West Virginia since he's been a senator in 2010. But it even goes back before that. We learned that in 1996, so we're talking a long time ago, Manchin lost the governor's primary, the Democratic primary for governor. He lost it to a progressive named Charlotte Pritt, strong union supporter, big on environmental justice in a fossil fucker state, just progressive, strongly progressive. She was leading in the, she beat Manchin. It was actually his first political defeat. What did Manchin do? He started a Democrats for Underwood, her opponent, her Republican opponent in the general election. Even despite that, Pritt was leading in the polls heading into the final week. What did Manchin do? He coordinated with the Republicans in West Virginia to run ads saying she wants to teach first graders about condoms. She wants to give children access to pornographic videos, and she lost. This was in the 90s, before he was even a senator. She sued the Republican National Committee for defamation, and the Republican National Committee's response was, Joe Manchin. Like literally,
right.
The ads aren't why you lost. Joe Manchin started a Democrats for Underwood, blah, 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 blah. And fast forward to 2020, Paula Jean Swearengin, who, you know, put up a good fight in 2018 in her first race against Joe Manchin for the Democratic nomination for Senate there. I think she got like 30% of the vote as a first-time candidate against Manchin, which is not terrible. She won the nomination in 2020 and was headed into a general election against Shelley Moore Capito, who was basically Mitch McConnell without the turkey neck, and is a Republican and anti-labor, you know, fossil fuel, all that. And what Joe Manchin did was a little bit more subtle this time. He started doing tweets saying, I can't work. I look forward to continuing to work with Shelley Moore. The state party would not allow Paula Jean to even speak at their events at the behest of Manchin. Paula Jean couldn't even get into union halls, who had close ties to Manchin. And Shelley Moore Capito won significantly. You know, was a pandemic. Paula Jean couldn't campaign normally, but basically every avenue, you know, these avenues, Jen, is running yourself. Every avenue was basically shut down for her. And the media wouldn't touch her. And a lot of this had to do with Joe Manchin. So everybody looks at what he's doing in Congress now, but, you know, Bernie, whatever you think of him now, because everybody's got an opinion, he was right. It really does start at the local level. And senators like Joe Manchin, who are blazingly corrupt, are obstructing progressive change at the local level. The other thing that we learned, you know, West Virginia is obviously a majority white state, but there are, you know, African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanics, and essentially the state party has not done anything on affirmative action or have a program for diversity for decades. Like the DNC charter of 1974, not to get so in the weeds, basically said state parties have to create an affirmative action plan. Shockingly, the West Virginia state party never did so. And now, only because grassroots organizers forced them to, they created an affirmative action plan. But guess who created it? The white chairman of the party, who literally wouldn't let members of the affirmative action committee into the meeting to vote on the affirmative action plan that they had no say in. She is a strong ally of Joe Manchin. To be clear, I cannot confirm this. I don't know if this is fact, but there's a lot of talk that she's actually related to Joe Manchin. I asked the West Virginia State Democratic Party to confirm that. They didn't respond. So if she's not, they didn't tell me that. But it's just this.
There's a deliverance joke in there somewhere, but
right. We also learned that from speaking with people, Manchin has met with activists and things like that, and basically told them without saying it to take a hike, and that Manchin. I mean, it's not just the funding he gets from fossil fuel companies. It's literally they are trying to make West Virginia essentially a subsidiary of the fossil fuel company, and just doesn't matter if people live there or not. Basically, just like a wasteland.
You know that West Virginia is District 12, right?
Yeah,
because that's what it is. District 12 is West Virginia's District 12, and they just don't care. So
they're basically trying to make it a human sacrifice zone. And they don't really care about the residents. And the truth is, West Virginia, I think, is a really good example of the fact that we're not so far apart in a lot of cases, progressives and conservatives, because most of the state hates Joe Manchin. He only won in 2018 by, I think, 1 or 2 percentage points. In the south of West Virginia, very unpopular. And a lot of the Republicans that voted for Trump, like Bernie too, Bernie wasn't available. Bernie won every county in West Virginia, and they voted for Trump basically under the guise of, well, we know they're con man and woman, the Democrats. So let's give this guy a chance talking our language. Obviously, they got hoodwinked, but it's a really populist state. It's a really old, like kind of New Deal, labor state.
Yeah.
But because there's no real populist choice, then they get sucked in by the culture wars and phony populism. And that's happening not just in West Virginia. But to put it in a bow, I mean, really what we learned is Joe Manchin is one of the most corrupt politicians, and that's saying something. And really, what he's doing nationally and blocking things is not so much about bipartisanship and saving democracy. It's basically about his career and his post-political career.
That is a perfect, and that speaks to even greater truth about his votes, about his daughter's basic immunity from any type of prosecution as it relates to the ridiculous price gouging and the countless lives that perhaps have been lost. And if those who don't know about EpiPen, I highly recommend you read up on it.
By the way, West Virginia has many cancer alleys because of the coal industry.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
they are also the head of they are also number one in the opioid epidemic, which is a massive problem in a lot of those communities, that a lot of the same communities that are ravaged by whatever has been left over from the coal industry. They're now being ravaged exponentially harder by the opioid crisis. And I know that that's a massive problem there. And I can't imagine that Joe Manchin cares too much about that.
No, he definitely does not care about that. But Joe Manchin, like a lot of people on Capitol Hill that are bought and paid for by corporate special interests, only care about themselves. We see that all the time. And this is just something that obviously trickles down into a lot of other areas. And this, of course, takes the road trip right into Louisville.
Well, real quick, sorry to cut you off.
Sure. No,
I didn't realize this, but one of the reasons Shelley Moore Capito was able to win over Paula Jean Swearengin, besides Joe Manchin's sabotage, is because Manchin and Shelley Moore co-sponsored United Mine Workers. I don't remember the name of it, but basically a mine workers pension law with Mitch McConnell that basically shored up mine workers' pensions, expanded their health care. And how do they do that? Not by making the actual corporations pay for it, but having taxpayers pay for it, their pensions and expanded health care for the miners. So not the corporations that had unsafe working conditions and gave them the black lung disease. We're paying for that. But Manchin and Capito got credit for basically, serving up some funds to the miners, when in reality it's, they deserve those funds, but they basically did it as a giant corporate welfare.
Yeah, and there's no question that he loves the position that he's in. That's why they refer to him as President Manchin in some respects. But, they're only going to highlight, things that are, like you said, that are sexy. They're not going to talk about the fact that he basically, it's not basically, he is a Republican. He's just, he figured out a way to play both sides almost perfectly. He's embraced by the GOP and he's embraced by the Democrats because they have no spine. And they basically are like, well, he's got a D in front of his name, so I guess we have to go along to get along.
No, they like him because he gets to do what they want to do and be the fall guy.
That's a great point.
He's the fall guy.
He is. And he's much better, 10 times better at it than Sinema is. And I think that that's why she's much more of a loose end that they'll have to deal with, because they do not want to deal with her. But Manchin,
she's a liability.
Yeah, she is.
She's a liability.
For whatever reason, they kind of like this idea of Manchin, who just allows every criticism to just roll right off his back. But I do think that when you can see the corruption up close and personal and how it deeply affects, West Virginia, along with Mississippi, are the two poorest states in the country. And it is a working class state that has been completely ravaged for decades. Like you said, this was a reliable blue state for many, many years. It wasn't until, and I would have to check. I don't
this past decade.
Yeah. I can't remember if Al Gore won West Virginia in 2000, but if he didn't, it was very close. But ever since then, it's just kind of gone that way. And a lot of it just has to do with the reconstruction of the Democratic Party to basically be a coastal elite party with a couple of major cityscapes in between, like Chicago, Austin, and Denver. But once you get away from that, it's a coastline party in many ways. And that, of course, takes us obviously to Louisville now. And the Democrats like to make a really big stink when a sexy topic is on TV. And of course, the whole issue with police brutality and Black Lives Matter, it gets ratings. And so when it's getting ratings, it's good to talk about it, and it's good to have this sort of divide and conquer strategy. Breonna Taylor, of course, was at the center of one of the worst cases that has existed in the country. Obviously, the worst, of course, being George Floyd. But her case, Tamir Rice's case, these are serious freaking cases in regards to dealing with actual police reform. And it seems to me, as was evidenced by, with the handful of videos that I watched that you did to cover it, there is a massive cover-up going on in Louisville right now. And this has as much to do with the fact that they don't want any type of reform, and they kind of want this story to go away. But it's not going away. And if you can elaborate on that, we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so let me first say, for people to understand, journalistically, it's not easy to prove a cover-up. Flint, for example, I've been working on 5 years on this, with Jen. And it took me 17 times going there to build enough sources, obtain certain, material and documents to really crystallize that there was a cover-up. And we have another story coming out about that soon. This is not hard. What the Breonna Taylor case is not hard. It's blinking red lights, a cover up. And it, obviously this week, Bill Cosby and prosecutorial misconduct was in the news because outrageously his conviction was overturned. Let's start with the Attorney General of Kentucky, who's, I believe, related to Mitch McConnell somehow. I don't know how, but I think he might be married to Mitch McConnell's granddaughter, I think. Daniel Cameron happens to be African-American. He literally was caught lying about the grand jury process. There was a grand jury. Yeah. He announced that they didn't, they agreed with him and his investigation that there was nothing criminal to charge here. He said that there was a witness that saw police announce themselves as police before barging into Breonna's apartment. Number one, that one witness originally said he heard nothing, and the police brought him back in 2 months and coerced him to change his story. There were 12 other witnesses that said, we didn't hear anything from the police announcing themselves. So that's the first bucket. He lied about that. Then 3 grand jurors came out anonymously and said, literally, they were not given the option to charge any of the officers criminally. And he lied. So right there, if you had any type of justice system, immediately the federal government would intervene, possibly impeach Daniel Cameron, and there would have to be a whole new grand jury. But that went on. The media did their, he said, she said bullshit, and life moved on. Then other facts came out. Literally, this was a gentrification scheme gone wrong. So let me explain it. Essentially, west side of Louisville is deeply, deeply poor. And the city government is trying to gentrify it. It's majority black and deeply poor. So essentially, one block that they were trying to get rid of and bulldoze the homes and get rid of all the people, there was one holdout that they couldn't get the home. His name was Jamarcus Glover. He was allegedly dealing drugs. So there's emails that came out where the mayor, Democratic mayor of Louisville, his office was in communication with Louisville PD about the Jamarcus Glover drug case. Why would the mayor's office care about a singular drug case, right? So why? Because they wanted to seize his home because it was the only home left on the block that they couldn't get as part of a urban redevelopment program. And they couldn't find evidence that he was dealing drugs. So what happened is they were surveilling him, and they found him coming out of Breonna Taylor's apartment, who didn't live in that neighborhood, with a package. So they literally went to a judge and fraudulently, without evidence, said, we believe he is diverting drugs to her apartment and picking it up there. No evidence. She didn't have a criminal record. No evidence. They give this to a judge. Judge signs the no-knock warrant. We know what happened. But the root of it was what we're talking about here, gentrification. Because Breonna Taylor would not have been involved if they could have proved he was selling drugs separately. So that's another layer of this, which, other than a few outlets, I haven't seen much coverage of the fact this was a gentrification ploy. Number three, the police told Breonna Taylor's family there was no body cameras from before, from leading up to it, or the shots. Breonna Taylor's family lawyer, found there were up to 30 body cameras from that night. So from leading up to it and during the actual event. The Louisville police lied on the police report. I mean, you could keep going with the list. They lied on the police report. So I've given you many, many different layers here, and nothing has been done. There's an FBI investigation, a DOJ investigation. Yeah, well, remember Eric Garner? Years of a Department of Justice investigation that started under Obama, ended in Trump. They didn't charge Officer Daniel Pantaleo with strangling Eric Garner to death. So who the hell knows how long this FBI investigation is going to happen? But everything is connected, because what I was telling you about this, the gentrification is going on between an unholy alliance between real estate developers who are buying off city governments,
Yep.
nonprofits who are somehow involved with all of this, and city government that's working with the nonprofits and real estate developers to basically shoot a gentrification cannon at poor black people and get them out, poor Hispanic people too, poor white people. There's been nothing done. Essentially the Louisville investigation is over, even though the Attorney General has been proven to have lied. Number two, you want to talk about Democratic woke signaling? Downtown Louisville, they have signs up on the street poles, Breeway, like a freeway, Breeway with her image. That's That's not even the city government that put it up.
That's about as woke as it gets, baby.
You know what? That's almost a candidate for Kente Cloth Tales. We have a segment called the Kente Cloth Tales.
Yeah, it's worse.
An anthology of tone deafness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
The city government actually and the police have actually forced. There was a park right across from City Hall called Injustice Square, which was the ground zero for the protesters down there. They forced all the protesters out. Can't be there anymore. They're talking about putting up a museum for her or something like that. And I spoke with her aunts, two of her aunts, who basically said, they didn't say this exactly, but basically said, how do you commemorate or memorialize somebody without giving them justice? I don't care about the street signs or, whatever. And even justice is a hard word, because there will be no justice. You can't bring her back, but accountability. So essentially from what I have learned, and I'm still digging, this is a massive, massive cover up. I've also learned, it's another layer that we don't have time for. Oh yeah, there's a lot of wealthy people heavily funding media outlets in Louisville and other places. And shockingly, those media outlets just stop investigating and stop covering. So it is really deep. But at the end of the day, a 26-year-old African-American woman who was a nurse, no criminal history, who was in bed, has been murdered. We just published a Substack piece on our Substack today about this. There are at least 6-7 major smoking guns that show a cover up, and the media is more focused on analyzing the handshake between Biden and Putin during the Super Bowl.
I think you really nailed the crux of this story, very similar to Flint, and that's why they're not covering it. Because as soon as you get to the heart of it, which is always about economic advancement for the wealthy, that is when everyone pulls back their ships and say, yeah, we can't touch this anymore. And I think that's always been the case. The reason why Flint has been poisoned is because of gentrification, the desire of the rich to systemically take over a part of our country that had been forgotten since the even before the 1980s, basically since the 1960s. And it was just when it was ever going to come to a head. And their attitude of, rather than fix the problem, is to just tear it down and build it in the image that they want, not what the people need. And this is sort of the same issue here. I never heard of this before. You just said that the reason why Breonna Taylor is dead is because powerful corporate special interests in Louisville wanted to gentrify the last remnants of this particular part of West Louisville. And this guy, who happened to be dating Breonna, wasn't having it. And they had to find a way to take him out. And in the process...
there's one other layer. Number one, Jamarcus Glover was her ex-boyfriend, not currently dating.
Yes.
But
yes.
Number two, another layer of this cover-up that's just glaring. The Louisville police said that the postal inspector, every city has a postal inspector, had investigated it and confirmed that he was receiving suspicious packages at her apartment. Mm-hmm. The postal inspector comes out later and says, we were never asked to investigate this. We didn't investigate packages coming out of her apartment. So that was the basis of the no-knock warrant to get it signed, that they had evidence that he was receiving packages at her home, allegedly with drugs in them. A separate, outside of Louisville, postal inspector investigated it. They found what was actually in those packages were shoes. So it's like, you got postal inspectors.
I'm still not sure how they were able to get a no-knock warrant, given what they presented to whatever judge signed a no-knock warrant, because those are really only used in very specific, dangerous situations. Like, a no-knock warrant is not something that should just be given. Like, that's not a common thing. And I think that we have completely glossed over the fact as to how would they have even gotten that in the first place. That's not an easy thing to get. I don't think people understand that.
Absolutely. And they conjured up, convincing the judge that that package had drugs and she might be harboring drugs. So,
and I still think that that's still in and of itself. No knocks are when you think that somebody is going to escape, somebody is potentially violent, or somebody is going to destroy the evidence if you are there. And given what they presented, none of those circumstances were present. So I still do not understand how they were able to get a no knock in that case.
We're speaking with Jordan Chariton of Status Coup. Jordan, if you could retweet what I just sent you, because I want to bring...
Oh, wait, can you answer this question? Just answer this question so that we can... because I feel like it says, Jordan, have you investigated the 2 million Native Americans without running water? I'm not sure to specifically what that is referring to, but that would not surprise me.
And if he hasn't, donate to Status Coup so they can have more money.
Because I'm sure he'd be happy to go investigate that.
Seriously, this is somebody who actually wants to go in the field and investigate, but it costs money. So if this is a topic that you want covered, and we all know how, I mean, even to this day, Native, again, this is why Deb Haaland gets to be nominated for, get the scent off of them, essentially. So that way people don't actually address where the real problems lie. But Jordan, if you could, obviously there's been this, unfortunate circumstance when it comes to non-corporate progressive media, if you want to call it that, that just kind of get caught up in the whole, what's the sexy topic of the day? How do we get as many clicks as possible? And yet it seems to me that no one other than our good friend Steve Grumbine of Real Progressives has really tried to bring as much attention to this particular issue of the investigative journalism that you're doing. If you want to be different, if you don't want to be part of, as you said, TMZ Light, or just a different version of corporate media, even if you aren't getting paid like it, and all you're doing is just, because again, that's what corporate media does. Corporate media is all about clicks. They're not about results. And if you're going to be an independent media channel and all your concern is, how do I get more clicks? Then what are you doing? I really have to question what your ultimate goal is, because it's one thing to deal with a specific topic for a day, a couple of days. Some people are dealing with a particular topic about infighting on social media for weeks now. And to me, that should be a signal to everybody who's involved in this particular medium that is not advancing any of the causes that we're fighting for. What you just revealed to us about Philadelphia, about Joe Manchin, and about Breonna Taylor, everybody should be talking about this every day, because that's the only way that this is going to become a serious topic of conversation, and it's going to potentially lead to results. So please, by all means, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I think this really goes back to 2016. I started seeing this where, listen, a lot of progressives, whether they live online all day or don't, have understandable anger, cynicism, and frustration, and in some cases nihilism. Frankly, I get it because I have the same thing. Trust me. There's no antidepressant strong enough for me based on the shit I see on the road. It's horrible. It's corrupt. It's unjust. And I've cried on the road privately, seeing the stuff I see and the people I talk to. But I think the progressives movement, good-hearted people, not bad people, are becoming consumed with a little bit of cultism. What I mean by that is, I think progressives learned a valuable lesson that you can't put all your hopes and all your apples in one leader, whether it's Bernie, AOC. Nobody is unfallible, whether it's politicians, me, any media figure. But I think what the trend has been online is, I don't even use purity anymore. I think it's cultism. I think for specific hosts that people love and think are righteous and pure and right, if you don't agree with them 1000%, or you're not essentially kissing their ring 1000%, you're a sellout, you're a fraud, you're this, you're that. And I think that's a really, really not only counterproductive and self-sabotaging mentality, but it's just a dangerous mentality. And listen, Jimmy Dore is my friend. I'm just going to name names. Jimmy Dore is my friend. I like him. He's been good to me. I think he's unfairly criticized a lot. I think he's not a conspiracy theorist. He proves a lot of things he says to be true. But he's also not a god. I mean, that's the truth. He's not a god. He's not a king. And I don't agree with everything he does or says. So at the end of the day, you could hate TYT. I think my opinions are not a secret. You could think they're morally bankrupt and corrupt, and you want to take them down. I really don't care either way. I mean, they'll succeed or fall based on what they're doing. But to me, there's just this growing trend where people truly believe. And again, I don't even think they're not bad people. People truly are starting to think that the most important topic at hand and the most vital story at hand, and the thing that we need to focus on that is like the holy grail, is covering TYT smearing Aaron Mate, or the Jimmy Dore battle with TYT, or other channels literally, I mean, let's just say it, driving this to the bank clickbait wise. I mean, I think we're on week 4 now. I haven't kept on.
I honestly hate this, and specifically do not like to talk about any of this. I think it's ridiculous. I am so done with these people and their nonsense, and we just plug along and do our thing. I cannot engage with that.
We addressed one thing. We addressed what Anna Kasparian did.
Well, yes, she was our bootlicker. She was our bootlicker of the week for that comment.
And that was one part of the show, and that needed to be addressed. But this idea that people can just endlessly talk about this stuff like this is, well, like you said, it's like high school. That's not what, if that's what your goal is, then I really question what your long-term plans are, because we're trying to get results. We're trying to get you elevated. We're trying to make these stories the central focus of what this movement is supposed to be about. At least I hope that's what it's about.
Yeah, I think the actual important thing to notice, and I agree with Jen, this is really not about Aaron, Jimmy, or TYT. It's a much deeper problem to me. This isn't about them. This is about literally the progressive movement eating itself alive. That's how the oligarchy has always remained in power. They've divided and conquered. I'm not saying TYT is necessarily capital P progressive. I don't think that. But again, it's not about them. And to me, it's not about Jimmy or Aaron. I've already said my piece on them. I did a live stream yesterday. This is about, people need to get out of this. You're a sellout. You're a fraud. And this minimalist extremist mentality of, to me, just self-sabotage. Bottom line, for example, Dave Weigel from the Washington Post tweeted out supporting my journalism today. I don't like the Washington Post. I've actually criticized Dave Weigel on Twitter. I retweeted him because it's about the stories for me. It's about the reporting for me. It's not about me. I don't give a shit where the elevation comes from. I care that these stories get out there. Kyle Kalinske, for example, him and Mike from the Humanist Report, while we were on this road trip, was literally the only people with an audience that covered, as humbly as I could say it, really important stories that we covered. Yeah. Kyle, specifically during his video covering one of our stories, told his subscribers to subscribe. We got 1,500 subscribers in a day. And
we can't do that for you. We're not going to be able to help you in that way.
Try. We'll do the best
okay.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
That's okay. But the point is, you know how many comments came in from old TYT viewers saying, "Oh, we didn't know you're back." We've been on YouTube for 3 years, Jen, Peter.
Yeah.
They never see it for obvious reasons, YouTube. But the point is, just Kyle, who hasn't been embroiled in this fucking endless, Real Housewives of YouTube shit, just him, I didn't even ask him to do it. I guess he saw one of my DMs and did it. Just him doing that helped us get this to more eyeballs. And that's really the point. At the end of the day, if progressives online are so cynical, are so angry, are so frustrated, are so burn it all down, that if I don't or you don't feed you exactly what you want to hear at all times, which, by the way, is the mentality of a Fox News viewer, if we're not in lockstep in agreement on all things, if I had people like, I'm on the road for 2 weeks driving through 4 fucking states on a shoestring budget, working 16 hours a day, and I have people criticize me because I'm not covering this. Yeah, let me pause from interviewing the homeless people so I could do 10 videos on what we're talking about.
Let me tell you, when I was taking care of some stuff, one of the best videos you did was when you and Jen were driving and you just had the live stream going as you were driving from, I guess, West Virginia to Kentucky. And it's just this endless drive. But you know what? At what point, I think you had like 600-700 people watching. And that's just kind of, that is really being as efficient and as effective as you can be. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I found it very pleasing as you were driving, doing the talking.
That's always been like a really popular thing, even at TYT when we went live in the car, which I've always enjoyed.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I remember when it was, you, me, a lady who we won't name, and Fred Frost. And that was
Fred Frost.
Yeah. One of the best.
I love Fred Frost.
Because that was how it really, that was, I think I don't want to take any credit for it, but that was like something that we kind of just did. And it got really, really popular. Like a lot of people really liked those segments where it was just us driving around, but we were on the road. We were showing people what's really going on. And there's a yearning for that. There's a desire for that, but there is so much suppression. I mean, the suppression is, look, there's many reasons as to why our channel is suppressed. We did a data analysis on our channel not too long ago. We have just under 7,000 subscribers, and yet it's like less than 10% of our subscribers actually get notifications. So it's a really serious problem. And
you don't need to do a data analysis. YouTube CEO openly admitted why you're suppressed.
Wojcicki, she doesn't hide it. I mean, they admit that they're on the take. And so I think one of the best ways to, wind down this conversation, and the reason why we do bring this up at the end about, the other social media networks, is we really need to be working in concert to highlight the things that are very important. I mean, rising tide lifts all boats, but this is really about focusing on what is important. And even though we're not the biggest channel, we make a
We're not the smallest.
no,
but we're not the smallest. So
but we
that's
do make a concerted effort to try to lift up as many people as we can, and especially those that are speaking truth to power and actually have the best interests of what is necessary. And like you were saying before about people being canceled, and even though she is more on the mainstream, I give all the credit in the world to Crystal for having you on, her coming on your show. She does go out of her way to highlight some of these very important things, as does Kyle, as does Mike Figueredo. We love Mike. Mike was one of the very first people. You were the first person to interview Jen when she ran. The second big platform to interview Jen after she announced her candidacy was Mike Figueredo. You never forget the people who do go out of their way when they don't have to. But
he came to my birthday party this year.
He did. He did. And it's
Did you see it, Jordan? Did you see my 50th birthday?
I think I was on the road, so I didn't. Sorry.
Well,
if you haven't had a chance, just go back and watch when Nina.
Okay, but here's the highlight, though.
Yeah.
Okay, highlight of birthday 50, because I feel like it should have a big thing. Chelsea Manning saying happy birthday to me.
Oh, that's nice.
On my live stream. That was the highlight of the 50th birthday for me. That was cool.
There was like a handful of moments during that live stream that really stuck out. First, Jen's reaction to, because I know Nina personally as well, and I was able to.
I would have told you not to bother her.
Yeah, but she came on, and Jen just like, oh my God.
Squeal. Well, it never gets old. Nina, it never gets old.
Ironically, Vosh was on at the same time, and he was a deer in headlights when he saw Nina on the live stream. Like, he's like, oh my God. And then Bo of the Fifth Column was a deer in headlights when Chelsea Manning
came on.
Like, it was like
a starstruck fest going on. It was kind of cool.
And a lot of people were saying after the fact, wow, you got so many amazing guests on your live stream. And, we just kind of explained to them, it's like, it's because we do what is necessary to try to build an effective coalition where we are spreading this message, where everyone can play a part. Everyone can feel like they can accomplish something. A lot of like you said, the nihilism is very real, and a lot of people have simply given up, and that's understandable. But I am not somebody who's going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If somebody believes that the best way to fight is within the Democratic Party, then support them. If somebody believes that the best way to fight is to form a third party, then support them. Don't tear somebody down like a lot of people who are trying to form a third party. All they want to do is tear people down who are trying to fight within the party infrastructure. Like, that's not going to solve the problem.
I think another big thing, and this goes back to Jordan, what you were saying about this cult mentality, and something that I just won't even acknowledge anymore. The amount of people that feel the need. And as I'm saying this, I'm seeing the comments coming up about this. The amount of people that feel the need to comment on who I talk to, who I have on my show, whose show I go on, who I affiliate with, whether it's Vosh, whether it's Tim Pool, I don't care who it is. I will talk to anyone if it is going to make the message go further. And the fact that there's people that criticize that shows them out for being frauds. Because if you're about the message, then you're not going to ghost people. And this is ultimately what was my issue with Jimmy Dore. I don't care about any of the other drama. I don't care what he says. I really don't care. I'm a very live and let live. The fact that he ghosted us when we were running on the same issues that he was a proponent of, that indicates fraud to me. You don't get to say, I so believe in Medicare for all that I'm willing to fight with everybody and their mother, but I'm going to ignore the one candidate who's challenging the person who I hate the most. And that's a fraud.
And here's a great example of the one thing. Well, there are some, but this is one particular thing that Jimmy is right about. With the stories that you just shared with us tonight, they are very significant. If Tucker Carlson asked you to come on his show and to talk about these stories, is there anything to think about whether you would go on or not to present these stories to potentially 4 or 5 million people, and what that might do, especially since a lot of the people who live in states like Kentucky, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania watch Tucker Carlson, who have no idea that this is going on? And if they did, they might say, why the hell aren't our representatives doing something about this? Why is this allowed to go on? So this whole idea about gatekeeping and policing, we have discussed a particular person who we will not name, who we just will not have anything to do with.
Yeah.
But overall,
there's
a lot of those. There's a lot of those.
You know who it is. You know who it is.
We don't have to say the name.
Yeah.
But there are so many people who have something to bring to the table, even if you do not agree with them 100%.
Yeah. I'll talk to anybody but said person. I really will. I don't care. I mean, yeah.
And I think that is really what needs to happen. So I'm making a pitch right now to every one of you guys out there. Kyle highlighted Jordan's stories. Mike Figueredo has highlighted Jordan's stories.
Yeah.
I have no doubt Crystal and Sagar will highlight these stories. But if you're an independent media and you're not highlighting these stories that Jordan is touching on right now, especially what Joe Manchin is doing, and especially the reason why Breonna Taylor is dead, you have to talk about this. You are almost, if you consider yourself an independent news source or channel, you are obligated to talk about this. This is serious shit. And all you want to do is get clicks. Well, you know what? That's a problem. This is a serious issue. Many serious issues. Yeah. I want Jordan Jordan should be funded the way that TYT was funded.
I'm a funder of Status Coup.
I'm a funder of Status Coup.
Thank you very much.
Any final thoughts before we conclude?
All right, but I have to do a shout out to Banana Booey because of this comment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, that was all.
That does look lovely this evening, I will say. We just got, she does.
It's not bad for me to get a trailer with no flat iron. I have no flat iron, and I feel like, okay, I could suck it up for a month without a flat iron. So,
it's amazing. She's in Asheville, which is probably one of the few places in the country that probably doesn't have a lot of problems. But I'm willing to bet that there are a lot of surrounding areas in Tennessee and North Carolina that have just the same kind of problems that West Virginia, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, they are dealing with, and it is not getting highlighted. One person who is running for office that I think you should absolutely have on your show is Erica Smith. She is running for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina, and she is a total progressive non-corporate candidate. And the reason I would highlight her is because she actually does have name recognition. She was a 3-term state senator in West Virginia. That's on your mind, but in North Carolina. And that does matter. That definitely helps, especially if you're trying to win. And she has there's 100 counties in North Carolina. She has that 100 county strategy, similar to kind of like what John Fetterman is trying to do right now in Pennsylvania. These are the people who truly need to be highlighted. And Jordan Chariton's work is what needs to be highlighted.
Look, Jordan, we got you a member.
Thank you, Blue Bandit.
That's Blue Bandit's one of our regulars.
Thank you, Blue Bandit.
Thank you very much.
We're actually having our members call tomorrow night, 7:30. So
we had one last night, but only Peter and me and John showed up. So we ended up having a staff meeting.
When we get to 100,000 subscribers like Status Coup, I'm sure we will have quite the few people that will attend the meeting. But you should attend the call tomorrow night. And if you're on the call, that might even attract more people to come on. Be like, oh my God, Jen and Jordan, a team.
I don't know why you think that people know me like they know him.
Let's just say I have a lot to say on that call. So
see, that should be
I've never been on a members call. I should go. I should
check. You'll get the Zoom link if you're a member. I mean, I'll just end by, I really think that people need to understand. I don't really care what you call yourself: progressive, socialist, neoliberal, conservative, marshmallow. That's irrelevant to this point. People need to understand that we're in a two-prong information war. Suppression kind of understates it. We're in a two-prong information war, and that war on one end is what it's always been. One army is the corporate media that, to me, has done more to rig elections than any foreign government. To me, in addition to Bernie Sanders' numerous mistakes, a large reason he lost was MSNBC and CNN stuffing, suburban white people's
Oh,
minds.
Jordan, let's call it what it is. They made Pete Buttigieg. They made him.
Yes.
All right, let him finish. Let him finish.
They stuffed down everybody's throats. Biden's the pragmatic choice. Bernie's a radical. Biden will win in the Midwest. Bernie won't. Bernie's a socialist. They'll kill him. Biden's folksy. This was on and on and on for a year. And particularly when Bernie was on the verge of clinching the nomination, they cheerleaded for Biden when Obama rigged the whole thing and got everybody to drop out. So you got the corporate media on one end, not to mention, I mean, literally the Iowa caucus, which was actual election fraud, and the media just, oh, Pete won, cheers. So that's one thing. So you have an information war coming from literally corporations that have hijacked the media. That's what corporate media means. Corporations have hijacked the journalistic structure. On the other end, you have a new development over the last 3 years. You have Silicon Valley and big tech literally erasing, for all intents and purposes, journalism, independent journalism. I'll give you a perfect example. And this is not to criticize Crystal. She literally openly admits this. Everybody loves Crystal Ball. I really like Crystal Ball. I appreciate her having me on. If Crystal Ball and Sagar didn't start at the Hill, there's a good chance the majority of their subscribers would have never seen them. If they would have just started as Generational Change or Status Quo,
they'd be us.
Yeah. There is a very good chance you would have never seen them, just like we are now getting old TYT viewers of mine who never saw Status Quo for 3 years, but just found us because Kyle.
Where have you been, Jordan? Where have you been all these years?
Right. So it's not I'm not taking away from them because they do a great job. And obviously look at what, the Hill Rising has become. It's really fallen off. But at the end of the day, being with a national corporate media outlet, which, by the way, their videos were also embedded into articles on the hill.com website, which is heavily trafficked, they shot through the roof very quickly. I mean, they literally lapped Kyle, who's been doing this for, I think, 10 years, maybe longer.
Yeah, 2010.
So why is that important? Again, not taking anything away from them. Because they had that amazing head start due to the rigged algorithm that when they left the Hill, they already had that major audience that they could then move to a growing email list, which on top of it, because they were at the Hill, whatever, and it was being stuffed in people's feeds, got the attention of people like Joe Rogan and this and that, and on we go. So doesn't mean they're not great, but what it does mean is you literally have, algorithm is a fancy word for the puppet strings. You literally have puppet strings on top of supposedly free, democratic information delivery systems that are pulling for the status quo and bottling up anti-war voices, anti-capitalist voices, anti-fossil fuel voices, and any form of actual journalism that goes in the field. That's clear from what's happening to status quo. So if your focus is not on that and is instead on, yes, the TMZ-ification of independent media, and I don't really care if people cancel me or whatever, that's what it is. And food fights between people, even though I believe Aaron and certain people had a right to defend themselves and whatever, initial coverage, like Peter said, was warranted. But if you don't understand that we are not going to get any progressive change, Medicare for all, no. Green New Deal, no. Banning fracking, no. Ending private prisons, no. Actual reform on money in politics, no. Reparations for black people, forget it. Ending qualified immunity, I could go on and on and on. If you think any of that stuff is going to happen, if the progressive movement does not come together instead of canceling everybody that doesn't agree 1,000%, if you think any of those things are going to happen merely by taking TYT down, who I could care less if they live or die, if you think any of those things are going to happen merely by protesting outside Nancy Pelosi's office or Mitch McConnell's office or Sunrise Movement doing protests in DC, those are all great. But by completely ignoring the actual structure that's propping up this corrupt status quo, which is CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, Daily Beast, BuzzFeed, and a lot of local media outlets, because I could give you horror stories about local media in Flint and elsewhere, including the Sun Sentinel that screwed Jen.
Oh, please. I that's a trash rag.
So if you think, I'm not talking about violence. If you think only focusing on protesting politicians, only focusing on protesting BlackRock and Blackstone, only focusing on those things, but leaving these journalists free and comfortable, why aren't there people storming the gates of the New York Times? To be clear, outside, not storming like the Capitol.
Non-violently, in a non-violent manner.
Right. Why? I remember literally one protest in 2016 outside CNN's Los Angeles bureau with Bernie Sanders supporters. Since then, has there been any protest outside MSNBC on Rachel Maddow's Russiagating while ignoring everything else? Has there been any protest on the manufacturing consent in 2020 for Biden and Pete and Kamala and Beto and whoever was the establishment star of the week and the lies about Bernie? Nothing. You are ignoring the single structure that more than anybody else, more than the banks, more than the lobbyists, more than the real estate developers, more than the pharmaceutical companies, the media is what maintains the status quo. It is what brainwashes, frankly, not all older viewers, because there's a lot of older progressives. Most normie Democrats are brainwashed. I know a lot of them because of the media. If you are going to solely focus on, in my view, the Real Housewives of independent media, then we are going to be in the political wilderness for a very long time, probably long after we're all gone. And I just know from having, and by the way, I don't keep talking about how I go on the field because I think I'm better than anyone else. I think there's a role for everybody. It doesn't make me better because I go out there and somebody does a show from a studio. But the point is, if you have a big platform and your focus is on food fights, or if you have a small platform and you're fucking engulfing yourself in that food fight to build your audience and go for cheap clicks, then shame on you. Because you ain't acting as a actual person who wants progressive change. You're just an opportunist who's trying to build a channel and get clicks. And I'll tell you what, I firmly believe this, and then I'll end my monologue. If the progressive movement and progressive media would come together and elevate each other, you actually can counter the corporate media. But if we keep doing what we're doing now, we are going to continue this same cycle of candidates that give us hope and corporations, politicians, and media companies coming together to sabotage them.
I think that this statement by Midnight Postman is absolutely correct. 100% bravo to you. The algorithm is fueling the TMZ-ification of progressive media by pushing views and rewarding the food fights. Exactly. They want us fighting. They don't want us getting along. So the more they know that this is also the thing. You do understand that the CIA is in everything, and they are in YouTube. And so they are going to look for anything that is going to cause dissension. This type of thing causes dissension. It causes dividing lines, and they're going to amplify it. In fact, without naming any channels, you're almost at the point now where you kind of need to tell them, you do understand the only reason you're growing is because the powers that be want this type of stuff, because you're not talking about stuff that's actually going to change what's currently happening.
Bingo.
If you think that they're not looking for like certain words to just say, oh yeah, they're talking about that. Perfect. Juice it, baby. That's going to get people talking. And that's going to get the whole thing about sell out this, not important topic that. And even though we might get, hopefully, over 1,000 views on this particular video between Mike Siegel and Julie Oliver, and obviously you coming on, we do want to highlight the importance, the sheer importance of these topics. We were just talking the other day. We had our, team call, if you will. And the next show we're hoping to do on Monday, knock on wood if it works out, we want to talk about a very significant solution to our economic problems, which is UBI versus a federal jobs guarantee. We want to have Steve come on, and we want to have Tom from Nerds for Humanity come on and talk about this very significant thing, which is what is the best path right now to dealing with the homeless crisis? Is it UBI? Is it a federal jobs guarantee? Is it both? This is the type of stuff we need to be talking about.
Well, we only talk about normal issues. Like, that's all we do. I'm not getting engaged in that ridiculousness. We have a lot of cool, like, I try to cover important topics and get people that are knowledgeable. How complicated is that to do?
We were talking with a team member the other day about, you know, what could we do to really increase the viewership on our channel? And he gave us one simple answer. Talk about the drama. I'm like, well, we're not doing that. Well, we're not doing that. But it's true. And that is unfortunately what sells. Cannot emphasize enough, guys. Investigative journalism is one of the last bastions of our Constitution that is still alive and still has value. Barely, not much, but it's still there. And freedom of the press is slowly but surely dying unless we band together to lift it up. I think we can all agree, as I've said before, when it comes to foreign investigative journalism, Aaron Mate is as good as it gets.
Well, we love the Gray Zone. I mean, look, the guys at the Gray Zone do seriously good work. That's all good.
When it comes to domestic, give Abby Martin credit too. She's pretty awesome as well.
Of course. Absolutely.
But when it comes to domestic investigative journalism, nobody is doing more important or better work for that matter than Jordan, Jen, and John at Status Coup. They are kicking butt and taking names.
Jordan, yeah, guys, check out Status Coup.
Statuscoup.com. Please go there. If you are not a subscriber to the Status Coup channel, please subscribe, click the bell, watch some videos, like, comment, and share, like we ask you to do with our wonderful channel. And if you haven't yet become a very important Patreon to Generational Change, it's patreon.com/generational change. We obviously would appreciate as we are highlighting more and more people so that we can grow our channel, so that way we can have a bigger audience to talk about topics like this.
Yeah.
That we highlighted. Jordan, the floor is yours to close. Please let us know what you're working on now and where you might be on the road again in the near future.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on. And I'll say real quick, as somebody who knows the feeling, it can get disheartening doing this kind of work while seeing other people getting 1,000 live viewers on bullshit. So I just want to say, to me, it's very admirable that you're covering these stories, knowing that it is frankly not in your business sense or in your, numbers sense to do it. I mean, literally, if I would have done in 2016 or 2017, instead of covering Flint and all these other things and just did 40 videos a week on Trump and Russia, I'd probably be over 1 million subscribers by now. So I admire that you guys are doing it the right way. And to me, yeah, you could get the numbers that others have, but if there's not purpose with it, it's all for nothing. So I really admire what you're doing. As far as us, I can't really fit that into one sentence because I'm working on 17 things at once. Right now, I'm currently don't have a date, but thinking of going to Minnesota to cover the protests for Line 3 against the Enbridge pipeline going through native land in northern Minnesota. Not that it's exactly like Standing Rock, but it definitely has kind of that feel. And I actually couldn't go. They had a treaty gathering thing. I had a doctor's appointment that I had waited for months that I couldn't change. But I'd like to go there because I think it's important. Beyond that, we're doing some investigative stuff. We have a Substack now, so we're trying to expand through written stuff, so not just videos. So kind of working on mansion, evictions, a lot of different stuff. We're also having conversations kind of in the background, which I might talk about on our members call tomorrow, hint, hint, to do more collaboration with some of the people we spoke to today. So I'm looking, hopefully I'll have something to announce on that. And next week, I kind of barely mentioned it, but next week we are premiering a 1-week exclusive on Rockfin. Exclusive with Rockfin. We're starting next week. I don't exactly know the day, so I'm not marketing right. We'll know the day probably tomorrow, but we're doing a once a week exclusive on Rockfin, which number one is guaranteed income for us, but number two, if we grow to a certain level, can really be extra income for us that helps us do even more of the in the field reporting we just did for 2 weeks. So I'm looking forward to starting on Rockfin. We're actually premiering with something we did during this road trip where we have like an hour recording of us going door to door with Democratic Socialists of America volunteers as they did what the government should be doing, knocking on doors of people facing eviction and giving them legal resources and knowing their rights. I interviewed one of those people facing eviction as well as DSA volunteers. It was a rainy day in Cleveland. So they were doing good work. So we'll be premiering that on Rockfin, I think Wednesday, but don't quote me on that. So Substack, Rockfin, possibly line 3. We do have, I've been saying this for a while, so my viewers are getting mad at me. We do have an explosive Flint story soon to come out. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with corporate outlets, it usually gets slowed down and stuck. But I kind of lit a fire into this one outlet that it needs to get out ASAP. So I'm hoping that gets out. To me, this story that we're about to break on Flint, and I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know how I could describe it. It's so corrupt.
Just stay
Well,
safe.
I'm just still waiting to see Snyder in handcuffs. Like, I'm not understanding this situation. Like, this is ridiculous to me already. Like, ridiculous. And only because that's the one we know about. But I mean, there's how many Flints are there? Really? I mean, there's so many. I'm sure of it. We just don't know.
You might see a lot more people in handcuffs after this story. Let's put it
I
that
hope
way.
so, because I don't understand why they're not. Like, I'm floored by that.
This speaks to the bigger issue of why Trump doesn't go down, why a lot of these other people don't go down, because again, it's cliche, but Carlin said it's a big club and you're not in it. And if one of them goes, they all go. I still maintain that the reason why Wasserman Schultz is still in power is because she was the head of the party for 6 years as the chair. And when you know every single dirty detail about everything that goes on, it's basically your little black book. It's your get out of jail free card. If I go, you're all coming with me. I'm not protecting anybody. So it's much as they are protecting each other, they are, but they're only protecting each other because they're protecting a corrupt system that they all immensely benefit from. It's really, you know, I like I said, that's why I do sympathize to a degree with the new members who are non-corporate going in. Do I think there's someone engulfed by the new surroundings? Yes, but I think that they're deathly afraid to step out because they understand that they are marked people. They really are. They do not want them there. But the last thing I will mention, as much as the squad is not necessarily doing what we would like them to do and probably could be doing more than they are doing, getting Nina Turner into Congress, I cannot emphasize enough how important that is. We also have personal relationships with her. She is very near and dear to us. I believe she is the heir to Bernie's movement. I believe she is the one person of this movement who could become president in 7 years. And I know you say, well, that's a long way down the road. It is, but you know what? Guys like Pete Buttigieg plan 7 years in advance. So with that said,
it was 15 years in advance. Yeah.
Seriously. So for the people who gave Jordan crap about not going hard enough on Nina, let me just assure you that the same people who did that to you are the same people who gave Jen crap about after we hosted a Assange telethon.
Yeah.
She merely
I got a question on that tonight from one of the trolls.
There you go. So for 10 seconds, she said, I really want Nina to get into Congress, and I don't think it would be in her best interest to dip her feet into the Assange story right now. Do you guys not see? And again, we have one more segment to do when Jordan goes, and that is our bootlicker of the week.
Oh,
which is
yeah,
something
we
that
have
we're
a
going to be
bootlicker.
highlighting as we go forward. Do you not understand that Nina, it really is the key to so much of this?
But
And that
can I please just clarify? I never said that Nina should not support Julian Assange. I simply said that she shouldn't participate in a telethon while campaigning for Congress.
And all of these people that are coming after you in a cult-like way saying, how come you didn't push Nina on this? How come you didn't fight back on her like this and that? And it's like, out of a 5-hour live stream, 5 hours is what we did for the Assange telethon. They highlighted a 10-second clip, and that is all they talked about.
This is what I'm talking about in terms of the cult and sellout and extremism.
Right? And I still stand by that. I think if you're running for Congress, that probably participating in a Julian Assange telethon is not the smartest move. I'm sorry. I just don't think it is.
I think, listen, I said after, I don't, it doesn't bother me if people thought I went soft. I mean, I'm a journalist. You're open to criticism. That's fine. I also thought I had a half hour, and they started wrapping me in 15 minutes. Yeah. So I actually was going to ask her about her Assange. I was going to ask her about Israel-Palestine, and I was going to ask her about defund the police, because most people don't know, but her husband was a police officer, and her son, I believe, was a police officer. But putting all that aside, what I was really talking about is, do people online really prefer like Nina Turner going scorched earth in the most blue establishment district, one of the most blue establishment districts in America? Literally, Marcia Fudge, who was the congressman there, and now her seat is open. That's why there's an election. She won by 60 percentage points over the Republican. 60 points over the Republican.
They did the same thing to Jen. Wasserman Schultz's people did the exact same thing.
They said that if I won the primary, we would lose in the general.
We were very fortunate that Jen, listen, there were a lot of people in Wasserman Schultz's circle that actually don't really care for her, and were tipping us off in certain points. And one of them tipped us off that, basically they're going around telling all Democratic voters, you can't vote for Perlman. She's a liability. If she wins the primary, a GOP is going to win in a double-digit blue district, mind you, that this is now a vulnerable seat. But again, they don't really have much. They're going to do what they're going to do. And listen, if you guys think that Clyburn is the last person coming out, and I'm not even going to dignify.
All right, but let's save that for bootlicker.
Yeah, we're going to save that. But my point is, if you think that's the last one coming out against Nina Turner, you wait, because a possible former president may be waiting in the wings as well to come and try to stab the progressive movement in the heart. He may just be waiting for the right moment.
All right, I can't even talk about Obama.
The last thing I'll go, because I got to spend time with my wife. The last thing I'll say is, people need to decide if they want change or a cult. Do you want change or a cult? I actually said after the interview with Nina Turner, yes, she dodged several things. It didn't surprise me, because if she attacked Joe Biden, if she attacked the Democratic Party, how do people understand in that district how quickly the attack ads would have been up?
Oh, yeah.
And how quickly they would have essentially Bernie Sandered Nina Turner. She's not a Democrat. She is divisive. She's attacking a black woman in Chantel Brown, who's her chief opponent. Do you understand that sometimes you have to be strategic and maybe not as fire-breathing and pure to get in the door to actually fight? Now, I don't worship Nina Turner. If she gets elected and then does what the squad is currently doing, I'll be the first one to criticize her and challenge her. But she's not running for president, congresswoman of YouTube, running for congresswoman of the 11th district. And if she were to do the things that the naysayers said she should have said, she'd be tanking right now.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And the James Clyburn endorsement would have been a lot more effective, because they'd be using attacks on her that she's not a real Democrat. She's basically a Trojan horse for the Republicans, and the usual. So I think people need to wake the fuck up. Just because the squad is disappointing you and you're frustrated and angry about the squad, so am I. Don't blanket it over Nina Turner and anybody else who runs with a D. Look at the person, not the letter. And none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know if Nina Turner, because she's not being fire-breathing like she was on a campaign trail supporting a presidential candidate, and she's tweaking her message. Frankly, Bernie should have tweaked his fucking message. He was sitting on 60 Minutes on the verge of the nomination, and he took the bait on Fidel Castro. I know from many people I spoke with in his campaign, they were fucking horrified. He should have said, I'm not running for president of Cuba. I'm running for president of the United States. And I want to talk directly to a lot of your viewers who might be closer to my age, because some things have been said about me that I'd like to clarify.
Yeah.
That was his opportunity to reach these older normie Democrats, and he didn't tweak his message. So great. He was righteous and right on Fidel Castro, and they used it against him for 5 days. So I think people need to wake the fuck up, excuse my French, and realize it's not about Nina Turner. It's not about the squad. It's about, do you want people? She's not, as far as I can tell, she hasn't moved back from one policy during this campaign. She was up 35 points running ads on Medicare for all. So you care about the policy, or you care about having your fucking fire-breathing righteousness fed to you on a plate at all times of the day it's just insanity. And I think people need to just grow up.
Yeah.
So that's what I think.
Thank you, Jordan.
Great as always. Thank you, my friend. We'll be seeing each other soon, and we definitely want to have you back the next time you're on the road. Open invitation. You know that, and we're happy to swing by on your channel if you ever need us. And
if you need us, yes. If you, need us,
I will gladly have you. Yes.
See, there you go. Not at his beck and call, but at some point. But guys, remember statuscoup.com.
Right.
Follow Jordan Chariton both on Twitter, and you're on Substack now. So follow the writing.
We're Status Substack. Status Substack.
Substack. And yes, Jordan is fantastic, and he's an even more fantastic friend. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.